and welcome again to the Recruiting Workshop Livecast event. So good to have you here. My name is Sonia Stringer. I've been hosting this event all day, live to you from San Diego, California, with an incredible studio audience. Say hello one last time, everybody. I wish I had like an Oprah budget so I could send you all home with cars. I wish I had like an Oprah budget so I could send you all home with cars or something. Like, you're getting a car, you're getting a car. No, you've been amazing. Thank you for being here. And if you're just joining us, perfect timing. We have saved the best for last. This is session number 8. Fortune is in the follow-up. How to keep in touch with prospects and handle let me think about it and other objections that kill your recruiting results. And I know for many of you watching, many of you here in the audience, I'm sure you've had this happen to you where you've invested time to create relationships with people. Perhaps you've invited them to check out your business. You've had a chance to share a company tool, or perhaps sit down with them in person and show them more about this business and what it can do for them. And then you hear that dreaded phrase, well, let me think about it, or I need to talk it over with my spouse, or not really a salesperson, I don't have time, I don't have money, all the typical objections, you've all heard them, right? And I know for many of you, not knowing how to handle those can completely derail your conversation. And I know many of the people I've worked with over the years don't necessarily follow up effectively, or they don't know how to handle those concerns. And after they've invested all that time and energy into prospects, they basically miss out on the opportunity to recruit someone really great into their team. So this entire session is about how to handle objections and follow up with people in a very elegant way so they don't necessarily feel like you are stalking them, which is something we want to achieve, obviously. So Jules, maybe we can start with you, because I know in terms of follow-up, you've been incredibly persistent with some of your prospects, which has led to a lot of your success, and you have a pretty simple follow-up system. So would you mind sharing just how you do that, what you say, which I think is really effective as well,
Sure.
and just let's start with follow-up to start.
Okay. Yeah, so I have this follow-up system that I've been using in my business for 8 years, and before I show it to you, let me just kind of let you know that for some reason, every time I show the system, I get a million emails from people saying, you know, there's this electronic way to do this. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But the whole point of why I like this is because it's not. So believe me, I know how to use a smartphone. Anyway, so I have these like little plastic sleeves that you can buy at Staples, and it's holds a business card. And so many of us, you might go to networking events and get business cards for people. Why, thank you, Vanna. And if you don't get a business card from someone, I also, some of them are just blank, where I write whatever information I have for someone on there. And also whoever referred them to me, sometimes, I just write that in the corner. And the reason, you don't have to hold that. The reason why I like this physical having it is because what happens is I have a binder that has from 1 to 31, so the days of the month. And so this was from February 23rd, so it was under 23, just to give you an idea. So I just pulled out these pages, and every day, I turn to that day and I see who I'm supposed to follow up with. And everyone in this binder is in some various stage. Some of them are people I'm supposed to call and show this to. Some of them are people I've already shown it to and know I need to follow up. Some of them are, like I said, a referral. Someone might say, oh, my sister might like that, right? And so the whole point is that we don't want people to fall through the cracks. And it gets very confusing to follow up with people. And the second someone says, oh, my sister might like that, I grab one of my blank cards on my desk, I write down the sister's name, and I write who referred them. And then even if I don't have that sister's number yet, it reminds me that I'm supposed to call back that person and say, hey, remember how you said your sister might like this? What's some information? So for me, it's important to get everything out of my head and onto something that's a system for me to follow. And then I just, like I said, I look at the first name and I say, oh, do I feel like calling Michael today? Not really. And I can move him to another day. No. But I always know who I'm supposed to follow up with, and that's really, really helpful. The other thing is, maybe it's weird, but I like to be able to physically pull out that card when I make that call. And let's say Michael doesn't answer the phone. Like, I might move him to 2 days from now. Or if I leave a message, and so in that moment you can decide where you move them to. If it's like, the fourth time I followed up with someone, maybe I move them to like a week later or 2 weeks later. So I'm making that decision in the moment, but then I always know who I'm supposed to call. And the other thing is, it helps you make the commitment to the activity, not the result. You know, so if you have to leave a message, well, great. Well, I can move them to another day because I left that message. And then just a little word about my magic sentence. I have a magic follow-up sentence that works no matter any of the situation. And part of it, like Sonia said, you know, I'm persistent because I have a product that, you know, it's free and everyone should have it. You know, I mean, it's like $10 to get started. So I have that sort of posture of everyone should at least be a customer of some sort. So my follow-up sentence is, you know, hey, this is Jules from blah, blah, blah. I just called to see if you knew what you'd like to do or if you need more time. And I've been saying that for 8 years. I think it would work with whatever your product is, to be able to say, I just called to see if you know what you'd like to do or if you need more time. And of course, that's implying they could say, no, thank you. I've decided I hate people. No, but but most of the time, it gives them the opportunity to either say that they're ready to get started, or if they're not, I say, no problem. When do you think you'll get to it? Super simple, easy follow-up sentence. But then when they tell me when they'll get to it, I move them to that day. And then that gives me the posture to be able to say, hey, you know, it's Jules from blah, blah, blah. I just, you know, I know that you said this was a better time when you thought you were ready. I just called to see if you knew what you'd like to do or if you need more time. So I've been doing that for 8 years. It works so well. Everybody gets something either as a customer or a distributor. And the funny thing I'll just end with is that because I say the exact same thing every time, it makes it easier to pick up that phone. You know, like when people get all nervous, what do I say with a follow-up? If you always know what you're going to say, and I mean, is that pushy? Is that sentence pushy? It's not pushy. It's just, you know, having posture that my product is cool and they should have it. And if they're not ready, then let me know when. So basically, I left a message. There was a realtor that was gone for like 3 weeks. And I guess I had left him like 3 messages, probably very similar intonation too. You know, hi, this is Jules from blah, blah, blah. Just called to see if you knew what you'd like to do if you need more time. And it was so funny because when he got back from his trip, he called me back and he was like, that was so weird. He's like, he said, I got 3 very similar messages from you. And I said, do you know why, Sean? Because it works. So do you know what you'd like to do or do you need more time? So, needless to say, he joined. But anyway, so that's my system, and I hope it helps. But when you know what you're going to say and you know who you're supposed to call, it takes away that elephant in the room of being so scared to do that. And you're going to, the more you complete that wheel of the process, the more people are going to be joining your business.
So brilliant. You wear them down with enthusiasm,
loving
and kindness.
persistence.
You do.
Yes, I do.
I also think something important to note is you're not attached to the outcome. I think that's the reason people don't follow up is they're so scared of hearing no.
Yes.
But if you can be unattached to that outcome, then it's easy breezy.
Yeah. So brilliant. And I love your system. It's tactile, it's visual. It would work for me. It would totally work for me. And it's important to note that it really doesn't matter what system you use. It's the system that works for you. So obviously that's working very well for you.
Definitely.
And that's it's a simple and easy. They could get those sleeves anywhere, correct?
Staples.
Yeah, staples. There you go. Plug your staples. Well, let's go to Amy because you have a very different follow-up system.
Right.
You're much more the tech side.
That scares me. It just does. And my system's all in here. I was even sharing earlier my contact information. When I meet people, it happens right then and there. You can actually, on your iPhones and your other phones, go in and create your own contact. In the 6S, it's called My Card. And you have all of your contact information in there with your photo. And so you just simply go to that in your contacts. You hit Share Contact. You type in the person's number that you're reaching out to right then and there at that networking event or wherever you are. And then I just simply say double tap to add me, and then they do, and then they send back to me their name, and it's all in here. So what happens from that is basically a system of my own, and it works differently for everyone. And how that works for me is simply by coding them with different names and how I met them, and for everyone that's going to be a little bit different. And then simply following up is taking those names, putting them on my calendar, and then same idea. And you're moving them from the days to when you need to follow up with them.
Brilliant.
So but it's all just right here, because having a million little papers around, they would never make it into the sleeve. They just wouldn't, because that's my personality.
That works for you.
Yeah, it works for me.
And you also have a unique email list that you've been building and that you use to follow up and drip on
Same,
people. Randy,
right.
can we bring up that slide? We have a little picture of the kind of email that you might send out to people.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so this is simply through a Constant Contact is the name of the email marketing. And I've been using it since the beginning of my business. And it's a way to then capture these people that I'm now following up with and putting them into different buckets. So I might have, if it was a women networking group, the distribution list would have, that would be the name. It might also have the date of the event, the location, anything to remind me of where it was that I met this person. And there's also the note functionality, so then I can go in there and type notes, whether it's on my contacts in here or even through the Constant Contact program. And so by doing that, then what happens is you can see, did they read the emails? Where are they clicking on the emails? And then from that information, I can determine how I follow up with them next.
That's brilliant. And you're adding value in the process, I can see. Through that newsletter, you're sharing, what, fashion tips, styling tips, other...
Yes, absolutely. There's that type. There's also, if they've purchased a product from me, there's a different email that goes out from that, and that is offering Party for a Purpose
Great.
all of the time. So yes, depending upon where they met me, the information is different.
Brilliant. So this is interesting because this is a great example of one-to-one follow-up. This is one-to-many, right? When you're
Right.
blasting out to an email list, you can be contacting several people at once with the same invitation to a meeting,
Absolutely.
same piece of
and
information.
then we didn't even touch on the social media follow-up, which
Right.
is a whole nother separate beast, but it works amazingly. We talked about it a little bit, but the actual follow-up part is that connection, the private messaging.
Yes.
I have a special group on Facebook, and people can join me over there too. And so
Right.
it's a completely different thing. Besides the business page, the group's a little bit more personal. So that's a whole
Fantastic.
nother thing.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
So let's go to Kimmy, because you are the follow-up queen, and I love why you follow up. So I'm going to let you share about that, because it's not always just about the business, I know, for you.
Right, it's not just about the business. And as I'm listening to you guys and you guys are listening, I mean, first of all, it's important that you find a system that works for you. So you could take pieces of everybody's system to use in yours as long as something works. And I think, too, thinking about having enough outreach that you're not following up with the same 3 people over and over again. So it's, you know, having all of those seeds out there so that you're in this constant flow of follow-up and this cycle, like Jules said, it's like this circle. And on Facebook, private Facebook messaging is so great because you can track it. I have all of my Facebook messages from the day I joined Facebook, so I don't delete anything. So I can go back and look from 2009 or 8 when I got started. It's
Wow.
amazing.
Wow.
But as far as, you know, on Facebook and just following up with people, I'm just always looking for what's going on in their life. So people who I've touched about the business who aren't interested at the time, I'm watching them, I'm engaged, I'm seeing what they're up to, and so sending them cool articles or things that will help them in their life. So adding value to their life for them. And I'm not expecting that they're going to come back to me and say, oh, I'll join your business. It's because it's really fun to connect people with other people or connect people to things that are important to them. And people appreciate that. And then, you know, I have a great example. It really is about, we take it so personally when we get a no, and it's so often not about us at all. Richard mentioned that, you know, sometimes it's just people don't have the bandwidth to say yes right now. And so by following up 6 months, you know, gauging your person. If they say no, probably wouldn't say, is it okay if I check back with you in a week? 6 months, you know, gauging your person. If they say no, probably wouldn't say, is it okay if I check back with you in a week? But knowing the appropriate time to check back with them or asking them. I think so many times we try to guess, and why not just ask, hey, how much time do you need till I check back with you? So I have this one gal, and I actually showed her my business in my original company, and I showed her my business the whole way through my original company, 4.5 years. Actually, Richard even came and met with her for lunch one day, and she goes, ooh, I didn't know you were bringing in the hammer. And she still didn't join. It still wasn't time for her. But you know what? We're great friends, and she felt very honored and respected. And then I invited her as I joined my venture with Richard and his company. And, you know, she came. I swear, I think she came probably to 7 events in the new company. And then it was so funny because she comes to this event, and she comes up to me afterwards, and she'd heard the same information every time. She's like, oh my gosh, I heard about the products tonight in a way I just didn't understand. I'm in. So you just never know. All of a sudden her bandwidth opened and she was ready to go. And so I think if you just make it fun, don't take it so seriously, honor people where they're at, you know, some will come around eventually and some may never.
Well, and I love that you genuinely love people. You follow up because you care about people and you want to stay in touch and develop that relationship. And that, in my experience, is the key to follow up. You're not recontacting people every time with, are you ready to join my business? Are you ready to join my business? You know, that is stalking, and people get annoyed with that. But there's certainly no reason you can't reconnect and see how they're doing. Ask about their kids. Share something that's valuable for them, right? Deepen
Right.
their relationship. And, you know, we talked about that before. Traditional marketing shows at least 7 exposures before people even understand what it is that you share. So there are certainly times when you sat down and talked to someone and they've been ready to join your team, but that's almost the exception, not the rule. And how many times would you guess you would need to follow up? Do you have any guesses? I don't know if you guys have gauged that, but
It's actually a lot longer now because of
oh yeah, can we get you on mic?
because of the pace in which we receive information. It used to, I think the statistic used to be
7
like
to
1
11
or
or
7 or 12, I
Yeah.
think. But now, because of all the information that we see and the way that we read information, I think it's 8 seconds you have to capture somebody's attention.
Yes.
And the scrolling on the social media sites, I think it's got to be a lot higher than that.
It
So
could
the
be.
follow-up
It
is a
could
lot
be.
higher.
But when you're following up from a genuine place and it's not hounding and hassling
Right,
people.
it's completely well, and I think that's the beauty of social media, because it does allow you to be in front of them in a way that is authentic and
Yes.
real and comfortable. And then when they're ready, that's when you get the private message a lot of times, like, hey, I was watching that, you know, even
Yes.
after today.
Yes.
That's what will happen, right?
Yes. Sorry, did you have something?
Well, I have one more. Can I share a quick story?
Sure, yeah.
So, also for those of you who have been in the business for a long time, and maybe you've talked to a ton of people and you've never found somebody who just gets it, when you find somebody who just gets it, it's so fun. And so, I was in Colorado this weekend with my daughter, and one of my team members lives there, and she said, "Hey, could you have a quick coffee with somebody who I invited to take a look?" And this is somebody who's been in my business for a long time. She's not had any success, and she has just kept going and going and going. And I just love that when people keep going, because she believes in our model. Well, she brought this woman to this coffee, and this woman is one of those people who just gets it and has contacts all over the country. And so, you know, the gal who's in my business said, now I know what it feels like. And so I just want you guys to know, if you've struggled, it really only takes one person to either change your belief wholeheartedly or to change your business completely.
Wow, that's brilliant. Can we hear from Pam too? You are. I wish Kevin was here, because I know he's the follow-up king, without a doubt. Yes, but you are also extremely gifted at follow-up, and I think you just shared you had someone just join your team that you first met 6 years ago.
Well,
is that right?
Kevin was in the military with 30 years ago.
Wow.
Just joined.
Wow.
So I've been following on Facebook. Of course, Kev is relentless. He also does a little thing, and I do it as well, and we learned it working undercover, and that is, I don't know if you have it in America, star 67, so the person doesn't see your phone number show up. And it's not to be tricky or crazy or anything, but if you do consistent follow-up like Jules did 3 weeks in a row, and then they keep seeing your phone number pop up over and over, maybe they just don't answer the phone, maybe it's family time, whatever, they're going to wonder a little bit. But if they don't know who's calling, and the whole point for us is to get them on the phone.
Yes.
So that we can help them and answer any questions. It's not because we're trying to corner them or, you know, trick them into doing something. We want to actually have a conversation. And as far as follow-up goes, Kevin does old school. He does this binder that looks like the dog ate it, because he's connected with over, I think, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 people since we got started, and every single person, he can tell you where he met them, when he did it. And he doesn't do days 1 through 31. I think, you know, February would confuse him, so it would totally mess him up. So he just has this binder, and everyone starts from the day he met them, and he flips through and goes through it. I do it on my phone, so if I'm going to follow up with 4 people in a day, I schedule the time with their name and their phone number so that it pops up on my phone as a reminder. I don't let myself off the hook. That's scheduled into my time, so then the phone number pops up, and I'm a little OCD that way, so if I see that little red button and it's popped up, I've got to get it over with so it can get off of my screen, and I can connect with that person. It might be the right time, it might not be the right time, and I've learned a ton today from these exceptional women sharing with me some new ideas that I'm going to put into play. You know, we don't always have the answer. Just because we've done it a certain way for a certain amount of time doesn't mean that that's the only way. Clearly, if we adjust and course correct a little bit, we'll find some techniques that can work much better.
Would you share your stats too? You shared with me how many sponsored conversations you've had, and then how many people you recruited, I think, directly
Absolutely.
from
And it changes. I've been at this now for over 6 years. Our first 12 months, Kevin and I had we had 3 conversations a day, 5 days a week for the entire year, consistently. And that first year, we personally sponsored 87 people. And from that 87, 57 of them became what we call a consultant. So they shared it with at least 2 or more people. And from that original 87, 5 people became the top end of our compensation plan, essentially. So they shared it with several people who got the vision. And our very first 3 people, because Kevin's one of those, so the very first 3 people that we sponsored into our business, 2 have hit millionaire status, 1 has hit a consistent multiple 6-figure income. Those very first 3 people that we shared our opportunity with.
Wow.
So I can see and trace now this last 12 months, because I love tracing what we're doing. Our last 12 months, we have personally sponsored 41 people. And from that, 9 people caught the vision, shared it with at least 2 people. And only 2 people then caught a little bit bigger and have gone on to do more things. So our numbers, our stats are lower. Our warm market is reduced, but we are consistently building and connecting with people and having those conversations. I can say in integrity, I don't have 3 a day anymore. I shoot for 10 a week. I live in a town of 4,000 people. I've met just about all of them. They know exactly. I'm the network marketer that lives on the hill. They know. So it's more challenging, but it's also more interesting. And it just keeps coming down to how badly do I want it? If I'm going to step out there and ask other people to do that, I need to be doing that.
Yes, and both of you are great examples of leaders leading the team because you're not complacent. The 2 of you follow up and are constantly prospecting all the time.
Sonia, if I don't come back from the week I've been away and finish up with Man Week and have a book full of names and things, I can't even tell you what's going to happen at my house. So there is some competition that takes place there.
Well, and I know too, both you and Kevin are great at following up because you want to follow up. It's not always, are you ready to join my business? Are you ready to I mean, you're just great with people. You're following up. You're continuing to build the relationship. And I think, wouldn't you all agree, that's a challenge I think some people have is they'll follow up once someone says no, and that's it. They take it to heart. They decide that they no longer need to invest in that relationship, and they've lost out on an amazing opportunity. They've done all the legwork, and now they're
Totally.
never
And
gonna
only
have a
3
chance.
things are going to happen. You're going to have someone become a great customer for you, awesome, off the charts. You're going to have someone become a business partner with you. That can be even better in a lot of ways. Or you're going to have a really cool story that you can share at cocktail parties or with your friends here, because something crazy is going to happen. You should be looking for the crazy stories that's going to happen. The different objections, reasons that people, some of them are really good. And you just got to keep those coming.
It can be very entertaining.
It can be very entertaining.
That's so great. Well, let's move on and talk about handling objections. And I don't know if it's different for men and women. I think it may be. I think for women, I'm generalizing here, of course, but I think for a lot of women, I'm thinking back to how I would respond. We would get the objections and kind of freeze up, right? And feel nervous and uncomfortable and not know what to say, or perhaps feel like we have to get into convincing mode and get really adversarial with people. And there's a very elegant way to handle objections that can make you feel at ease, make your prospects feel at ease, and actually answer the questions that they have, because objections are just questions in disguise. Their concerns are questions in disguise. And Richard, you've done, I think, about the best training I've ever seen on handling objections. Erica, can we make sure that goes out in the chat roll? There's we're not going to have time to go through the entire presentation, but he has a slide deck that you can all download. We'll make sure you guys get the link too. Those of you watching at home, be sure you get this link and go check out his slides. That'll basically walk you through this entire process in detail. This is a training worth having. But I was going to have you just, in summary, go through the handling objection philosophy that you teach and the steps, if you can, in just general.
Good. Well, it's kind of a continuation of what I talked about earlier today. I want to say something in front of it that might be helpful around follow-up. You invite people, you have yeses, you have nos, and you have maybes. And the maybes actually can equal the nos, maybe even outnumber the nos. And what I found is when I'm interviewing and coaching sales leaders about their follow-up and their process, the maybes really are sucking energy from the sales leaders.
Yes.
It's the maybes that the distributor is like grinding over, they're worrying over, they're fretting over, they're like, and part of it is hope, and It's one of my least favorite words, hope. It's just not a popular position. No, hope is not a strategy, and it's not an empowering place to come from unless you're shipwrecked on a deserted island, or you're, earning $1 a day in Africa. Hope is a good thing there. But here in business, hope is not a good thing. Hope just really drains your energy. So what I encourage people to do is move people as quickly as possible out of the maybe zone into a yes or a no. And most of them are going to go to no. And you'll really free up for yourself a lot of energy if you'll give people permission to say no. What they're telling you is maybe, partly because they're afraid to tell you no. Mm-hmm. And so if you just give people permission, like no is okay. It's okay if this isn't right for you. I really, really want to move you into the no column. Because maybes suck the life out of me. I don't want any hope. I either want yeses or nos. I don't want any hope. So that being said, the system is called listening through objections. As you can expect, I'm kind of big on listening. And step one, which I kind of talked about earlier, is when you hear an objection, just pay attention to your physiology. Just notice how when you hear an objection, notice what your body does. For most of us, it tenses up, it recoils, and we go into defense mode. And that's going to be then reflected in your conversation. So the first shift in this process is through vision and affirmations and retraining yourself, start visualizing yourself to embrace objections. If you're a rational person, once again, embrace them by, if there are no objections, you're all terminated. We don't need you anymore if there are no objections. It's what you get paid for. And so learn to embrace the objection. It's where you're going to have an opportunity to serve people. So that's an attitude thing, it's a physiological thing, but it's an energy thing, but it's really, really important. Because if you're in defense mode, people are going to push back. So usually I like to do this demonstration with a man, but I'll take a cop instead. So if you push people, just notice how they push back. Okay, so push me now.
I was.
Now push. See, you don't have to push back, but it's just it's the natural reaction to push back. So when a prospect tells you, I don't have time, and your response is something like, sure you do. If you sleep 8 hours a day and work 8 hours a day, you got 72 hours a week free time. What are you doing with it? That doesn't give the prospect any more time. All it does is irritate them, and they're just going to dig in and push back. So embrace the objection. Step two is define the objection. Now, this may sound, may be academic for most objections, maybe academic for you, but I find it to be useful because we don't know exactly what the prospect means by whatever their objection is. For example, if a prospect says, I think it's a pyramid scheme, which we don't hear that very much, but if they do, that could mean several different things from their point of view. One, it could mean that they think it's illegal. So some people's definition of a pyramid scheme is it's illegal. They don't want to go to jail. That's why they're saying no. Some people's definition of a pyramid scheme is that it is, from a practical standpoint, from a fundamental standpoint, it just doesn't work. It can't last. So the model doesn't work. And they don't want to waste their time. Does that make sense? Some people define a pyramid scheme as immoral. Like they don't want to take advantage of people. So if you're going to respond to the objection, don't you think it'd be a good idea if you know what they meant by pyramid scheme? Somebody says, I don't have the money. Well, if you haven't told them how much money it costs yet, you might want to ask them, how much money are you thinking it's going to take? Or maybe they say, I don't have time. You might want to ask them, how much time are you imagining it's going to take. So anyway, the second step is to define the objection. The third, you might find counterintuitive, but it's magical in connecting with people and building rapport and relatedness. And that is, take their side and embellish the objection. So if somebody says to you, I don't have time, what's really going on in their life, do you think? Like you say, I got this business opportunity, it's really amazing. We go to all these places, we have all these meetings, we make all this money, everybody's wonderful. And somebody says, I don't have time. What do you sense is really going on in their life? Overwhelm, perhaps? So instead of saying, well, it doesn't take very much time, you can do this, but as a network marketer, we do this while we're doing everything else. Why, do you go to the movies and do you go to a restaurant and you tell people about it? We just network every day in every way and it doesn't take very time at all. The problem with that response is the prospect is still in overwhelm. Doesn't help them. Your creative BS story about network marketing doesn't help them. What would help them is for them to get that you get them. Boom, magic happens. So somebody says, I don't have time. You might say, wow, so you got a lot going on? What's he or she going to say? Have I got a lot going on? Well, tell me about it. What's going on? Oh my gosh. And then they tell you about everything that's going on. And so then what you want to do in the embellish phase is actually listen and speak back to them in a more articulate way than they spoke the objection to you, their objection. So it sounds like you can't even keep up with what's going on in your life now. It sounds like when you get home, you're just exhausted. It sounds like you can't even keep up with the kids. It sounds like dinner is no longer fun preparing for your family. It's like one more thing, and then you got the laundry, and then you're going to work too the next morning, right? Oh my God, does this man who has the female side get me? Because you do get them. And so you can keep the embellishment phase up, which is just getting people and helping them express their frustration or their fear. If they say it's a pyramid scheme, say, what do you mean by that? Well, those things don't work. Well, what do you mean don't work? Well, those things, I might spend 4 or 5 years and then the whole thing's going to fall apart. So what I hear you saying is you don't want to waste your time. You're right. I don't want to waste my time. So that's just embellishing. And in the embellishing phase, you keep the embellishment up until, doesn't always happen, but you'll be amazed at how often it happens. The next step is purging, not the objection, but the energy behind the objection. Mm-hmm. And the energy behind the objection is almost always fear or frustration. So you just keep embellishing the objection until your prospect lets go of that fear or frustration. And they do that when they get it, that you get them. They get off it. Now, sometimes they'll come up with another one, like whack-a-mole. So you get them about how busy they are, but then they'll say, well, I don't have any money. And so you just go through the same process again. Just listen through the objection. It's the Tai Chi approach. Whatever people's objection is, don't push back, don't argue, don't make them wrong. Get them. And get them until they get off it. And when people get off it, then you can ask their permission to address it, which might sound as simple as, I get it. You don't have any time. And the last thing you want to do is add some overwhelm to your life. Why would you do that? Yeah, okay. So let me ask you this. If you could prove to yourself how you could work it in somehow, if you could prove it to yourself that you could work it in and make an extra $1,000 a month, would you at least look? Now, you can't ask that question when somebody is fearful or frustrated. Mm-hmm. But you can ask that question when they believe you get them and they've let go. Simple as that. Listening through objections.
It's brilliant. You know, I think it works well for anybody, but I would assume for women especially, knowing how emotional we are and how much angst would come up when we're being asked to make a decision and we're feeling overwhelmed and there's just no way for us to do it. To have that happen, to have someone really listen and appreciate and honor how we're feeling, just that in and of itself would create so much natural rapport. I could see how just easily people's guard would come down and they would at least have some level of interest at that point to look further. Thank you for that, sir. It was lovely. Jules, how about you? Because I think what I heard you share before is you love to handle objections even before they come up, if you can. Would you share a little bit about how you've done that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that when you're kind of presenting something, you can address a lot of those things, and without even knowing it, they're kind of lowering their defenses. One of the things I like to say, I like humor, and it just kind of helps people kind of see that you're just being real with them. So with my product, if you have 3 referrals the rest of your life, you've made back your money. So I'll say, even if it takes you 15 years in between referrals on your deathbed, you can say, I got my 3. And like it just kind of diffuses that where it just seems funny. Like they obviously can show one person, more than 15 years. And then also I like to use an analogy because it's if someone understands something that they already get, that they know isn't a pyramid scheme. Like, so I'll say, it's like Netflix. And, if you have a subscription model in what you do or whatever, it helps them kind of already relate it to something that they already understand. Or we all have a business, I'm assuming, that, involves residual income. So I'll say, it's like insurance. I'm like, no one is born saying, oh, I want to be an insurance agent. I'm like, but they do it because, it makes sense. They're going to build residuals in their life. I'm like, that's kind of what we do. We're working towards something that we get paid on every day. So I'm kind of just, as I'm going through it, relating it to something that they already understand and connect to, and they know that insurance is something that might not be fun, but it's that people go into that direction for a reason. And I say, we're a lot more fun than insurance, Hope I'm not offending any insurance agents out there, but and then the other thing from a psychology standpoint, I think that a fear for a lot of people of getting started is what the next steps are going to be, like how they would even go about it. So sometimes I'll just kind of throw that in too and say, I like to help people get started by da-da-da-da-da. And I just kind of lay that out of what their first steps would be if they got started as a customer or as a distributor. And so they're already picturing themselves doing that with me so that it's not as scary to take that first step. And then the last thing is I kind of lay out all their options, the customer options and the distributor options, like the waiter with the dessert tray. So I'm not attaching outcome to what they pick, and I don't get a lot of objections because literally they can pick which one makes the most sense to them. If they don't have an entrepreneurial iota in their body, they're probably not going to pick the distributor one, but hopefully I've shown enough value that they'd at least want to be a customer and try it out. So by kind of laying it all out that way and letting them pick the one that makes sense to them, I don't find that I get a lot of objections. And if anything, they're almost more curious to learn about one of the other ones that maybe they wouldn't have considered after I kind of lay out, the objections in my presentation. So
Brilliant, thank you. One thing I want to just acknowledge and emphasize in what's being shared here is objections are such an emotional response. Would you agree? People's fear comes up, their discomfort. What does this mean? How will I have to change? What will I have to do? What will my husband say? My partner, whatever. And what I can hear you're all doing so well is you're really clarifying that rather than just, letting someone have a very obscure emotional response. You're asking questions to help them clarify, well, how much time do you think it would take? How much money do you think you would need to get started? What of these options would make sense to you? So much of that objection handling process, and I think you illustrated so well, Richard, is, being with people. You don't need to panic. They're already panicked, but you don't need to panic. You can stay calm and just be with them in that process. And through asking questions and acknowledging them and validating how they're feeling, they'll calm down and be in a place where they can be a little bit more responsive and rational and thoughtful about what the next steps might be for them. So to me, that's really what objections is about. And it is so much about being an advocate and really taking a stand for that person, knowing that they just got triggered into their fear, and that your job is to just be there with them and help them calm down and see that there could be something here that's really invaluable if you can help them just get past their fear in the moment and see things from a broader perspective. So let's go to Pam. Pam, we didn't talk a lot about her career formally, but there's a whole story here we could get into. She had a really...
Let's keep it G-rated.
We well no. She had a phenomenal first career as an undercover police agent working with her husband. They had an arranged marriage that turned into a real marriage. And their job in Canada was to go and discover and bust up drug rings. That was her first career. And then she moved on and became a federal crown prosecutor in Canada, which is about the highest level you can have as a lawyer, and was responsible for then prosecuting many of those major drug cases within the country. So she has a natural market made up of cops and lawyers, which has got to be about the most skeptical group you could ever try to recruit into your business. So you got a lot of practice, I know, handling objections. And you recently created a book that I would love you to share. And let's make sure that link, Erica, goes out on the chat roll too, the link to Pam's book on building a case for network marketing. I haven't even read the book yet, but I know the premise of it, and I'm really excited for you to get this out there. I think for anybody considering this business, this would be a phenomenal tool for them to get exposed to handle a lot of the objections, especially coming from an ex-cop and an ex-lawyer who can really lay it out there in a way and build a case for network marketing.
Well, I would just love to get an agreement from everybody who's been a part of this, and when you're sharing, is to just let go of the hype around network marketing. I think that does more damage than, the new person who doesn't really know is just excited. That's awesome, and people are really inspired by that. But if we start talking about statistics about 80% of people make millions of dollars, they're all network marketers, or we start calling people who are not interested haters, that just makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. When I hear that word, because I didn't want to be a plumber, it doesn't mean I hate plumbers. It just means that didn't work out for me. That's not the career choice. This career, this exceptional profession, is not for everyone. And recognizing that is okay, and being okay with that helps all of us. So just being authentic and being in integrity. I did a lot of research because so often I have heard so many people talk about statistics and talk about this, and they just make it up, and they say it with such authority that now it's posted on Facebook, and then this person has a picture of it. And I really went to a lot of trouble to really dig beyond some of these myths that have been out there around our profession, the good, bad, and the ugly, and really tried to bring out what is so exceptional about this profession. Just to be honest about it, it's hard sometimes, and it's very challenging, and it's a real business. And it is attracting some of the most exceptional people in the world, but it isn't for everyone. Some people still want to do what they want to do, and isn't that okay? And I think just creating a space for that. But I really wanted to put some, there are exceptional books, clearly. We've heard of a couple today. And we need more in our space so that people can resonate, that people can learn and share, and just partner with the truth, not the hype, the actual facts and the truth around our incredible profession. So that was what motivated me.
That's brilliant. And I know you used to, were you not called Pyramid Pam at one
I
point?
was
Yes,
called Pyramid Pam
around
at
the
courthouse.
courts. Yes.
And I really wore, at first that really offended me and I was quite ticked off, and then I started researching case law around network marketing, and I could spout off cases both in America and the United States, and I was one of those people that decided to get into an argument and challenge people with their ignorance around what I did, and I quickly realized that was a losing battle. So instead, I wore Pyramid Pam with a pride. And the day I walked down the hallway on my last day in Superior Court, so in Canada, we still wear the long gowns and the collars and everything into Superior Court, so you know who the lawyers are and the criminals, because sometimes people are confused. So we have to dress up there so they know the difference. And I was walking down the hall, and I knew in my little part-time gig that Kevin and I had built in 18 months, I was earning more than any other person in that courtroom, more than the defense lawyers, more than the judges, more than anybody. And I did it part-time, and I was able to do incredible things with my family. So the Pyramid Pam thing was sort of, I took it as a compliment at that point.
Brilliant.
it indicated brilliance, absolutely.
That's great. Well, I look forward to reading your entire book, and I know you've got a chapter in there on handling objections that people can go and download. So on the chat roll, make sure you get that link off the chat roll, go to that page, download that chapter. I know you'll love it, and then I look forward to seeing the entire book, and we'll make sure you guys get that link too as well. All right, we have time to hear, I think, from both of you. Amy, is there anything you share in terms of handling objections that hasn't been shared, but that, or
There's,
reiterate
you know,
anything?
there's so much, but no, my key magic every single time is tell me more about that. It's the same thing. Tell me more about that. And really just trying to connect whatever it is. And it's those words that lead to more conversations. And then people just want to be heard. They just want someone that cares. And in a society today where we're all so connected, what I really find is that a lot of women especially are not. And so that is just my driving force to turn back on that light inside them that's been dimmed. And by asking that, tell me more about it, really opens them up.
Yes.
And we're in a business, we're sorting people, we're not convincing people, and that's where the bad feeling comes when you're trying to convince somebody.
Yes.
But it isn't for everyone at this moment in time. So just knowing that and going in with the fact that no is part of the business and welcome the no's, I think, that's just where you need to be with it.
I sense too, one of the things about you, because you just speak with such quiet conviction, I would bet that because you are so sincere and direct with people, like saying, tell me more about that, just the fact that you don't back down from a no, that you have enough belief and conviction in what you're sharing to address and encourage those concerns head on, just subliminally speaks so much about your belief in what you do and what you represent. And I think it's important for women to do that. We tend to
Absolutely.
back down. We don't want to offend people.
Right.
If someone doesn't appear to be interested, we're the first to let it go. But I really sense that you don't let that happen. You're really direct, but in a very authentic way, a very sincere way.
Absolutely. Well, we all have seen what it does for ourselves, for the people around us, for the women here. And I know that it changes. I'll start. I'm a crier. But I mean, it's so powerful. So if somebody's scared about the idea, I want to know more about that. I want to know more about them, and how what I can offer them can change that in their lives.
Brilliant.
It's completely sincere and completely life changing.
And I truly believe, I think any of you, you've all been in the business for a while. Would you agree? It's like the more you're in this business and the more you see those stories in your own team, in your company,
Absolutely.
in the profession at large, of people's lives that have been completely transformed by this. In my belief, you owe it to people to stick with them. If it's not for them, that's fine. But if it's just fear or lack of knowledge or a concern that's getting in the way, we really owe it to them to stay with them and answer those concerns and be sure that it's really not for them. And I know you've seen a lot of that in your team, so you've got enormous conviction, I know, in what you're doing. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
How about you? I know you and Richard have got similar approaches, but
Well, just after listening to everybody, a couple things that came to my mind. I love how thorough you are when you're sharing with people, and I think so many times, especially as you're new, you're just so nervous to get the information out and then kind of run away. So I love how you're so thorough, and it allows somebody to feel confident and comfortable with the decisions you put out. So, if you're one of those people who's like, okay, I showed it to you, bye, and you're running away, maybe take a little bit more time at the end as you're finding out what's going on for them. But also another thing that I wanted to share was that, we just have such an opportunity to really raise the profession. And so if somebody says, no, not right now, and just asking them, hey, what kind of information could I get you? And go do your research, and encouraging that versus trying to, figure out how to get them to say yes. Because if you really get somebody to say yes and they're not ready to say yes, the likelihood of them actually staying and building with you is very small. So I prefer people take their time. I prefer they do their research. I prefer they feel super comfortable and confident in joining me. And so I think we all have that opportunity. And then when we treat people that way, we as a body of people just lift our profession so greatly. So those are the couple things I wanted to add.
absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Let's give them a very big, warm round of applause, everybody. Thank you for sharing. You're such classy examples of how to do this business right. So I'm really glad that we had you all share here as our last session. And for those of you watching on the feed and also here, do you feel a little bit more excited about handling objections? Does it feel less scary? Yes? We have a lot of people in the back. Yes. So yeah, just on behalf of this panel and all the people that were here today, I encourage you, don't chicken out. You know, it's like what you share with people truly is life-changing. You will definitely have people who don't understand, appreciate it, have concerns, have fear come up. You know, obviously if it's not for them, then we want to honor that choice and be elegant and recommend another avenue for them. But if you sense that it's just fear or lack of education, you know, don't chicken out on those people. You know, stick with it, be elegant, do your very best to uncover their concerns and be patient. I think everyone here is a great example too of how with patience and over time you develop the relationships and the trust that can just snowball in terms of the growth of your team. So for those of you watching and for those of you here, thank you so much. We've had an amazing day. I'm just ready to go have dinner now, but it's been a pleasure to have you all. Thank you for tuning in. And if any of you would love more help in handling objections, that is a big part of the coaching program that I'll be offering in March, the Heart-Centered Sponsoring Skills Coaching Program. This is your last opportunity to invest in that. It's part of the Women of Influence package. We have one last short video to share with you that will give you all the details of that. I sincerely hope you will join me. I love teaching that program. It transforms people's businesses and teams, and a lot of the profits from that program are going towards Women United for Change, which we've spoken about many times today. And so just by investing in that program, not only will you get my help in growing your business and your team, not only will you have the opportunity to come to the Believe conference this fall, where you'll have more opportunity to work with amazing leaders like this and myself, but you'll also automatically be changing the life of women, the lives really of women in developing countries, because we're donating a large portion to that cause. So I'll let you all watch that one last time. This is your last chance to invest in the program. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much, studio audience, for being amazing today.